Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. We're back in the studio with Dave Kyle from Hemingways Books. Now, Dave, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yes, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Nice being here.
Thank you very much. Now, let's kick off the show by saying, how's business? Good?
It's very good. Best it's been in 23 years.
Really?
Yeah. We've actually had our best year last year, and this year we're ahead of last year. So,
Well, what is the deal with that? You know, you see so many used bookstores usually going broke.
yeah.
Yeah? What is your secret?
Well, I think part of it is we have decided to expand rather than stay the same, and we've also decided that a few years back that we needed to run our store like a new bookstore, which meant we needed technology and we needed the software programs and the inventory programs that a great new store would have. So that's what we did, and so we run it that way.
So I understand every single book that you sell has you put in the inventory, right?
Right. We know what it is. We know how long it's been sitting there. We know whether it sells or not and how many we need for the next few months. So we don't get drowned in dead stock, which is the number one reason why most used bookstores went out of business.
I'll bet.
Yeah,
I'll bet.
easily.
So tell me about the ebook effect, the future of bookstores. What's going to happen there? What's your opinion?
I think we've pretty much gone through the worst of the shakedown. I think most of the stores that weren't going to make it aren't in business anymore. And I think if you look at them, the number one reason why bookstores went out of business was rising rents. It's blamed on the ebook, but I don't think that's fair. I think the ebook has expanded reading. I think more people are reading because of ebooks. Yes, some people have migrated to the ebook platform and never come back to a bookstore, but most people do both. And I think there's a big opportunity because of that.
I'll bet there is.
Yeah.
I'll bet there. It seems like a world where we don't know. You know, there's so many questions out there unanswered yet, and I think in the next couple of years it will kind of find its own equilibrium between bookstores and ebooks and audiobooks and the whole thing. How we consume our books, right?
Yeah, maybe. Except don't forget, ebooks have been around more than 10 years now. They've had their rapid growth period. In fact, there's lots of evidence now to say that ebook purchases of ebooks, the actual product, is slowing down. That while you can give an ebook as a gift, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get used.
Yeah.
And if you do have an ebook, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily continuing to use it. I don't have a problem with them. I really don't care one way or the other because it really doesn't affect what we do. We kind of think there's tons of books that you can offer to the public. And who cares about the ebooks? I mean, own an ebook, use it when you travel, fine. But that still doesn't mean that we have to be quaking in our boots and worried about whether we're going to make it next year.
Sure.
We have a different game plan, and we're pretty confident in what we're doing.
There's something wonderful about holding a book, you know, in your hand, leather-bound book. Now, I have another question. You were trained, to get off the topic a little bit, you were trained in restoring books, right?
That's how I started back in the 70s, was doing restorations and book bindings and period rebinds for antiquarian books made between 1500 and 1800. And I did some work for a couple of the antiquarian dealers in Victoria and Vancouver back in the day. And that really got me started in collecting and hanging around bookstores like a book rat. And over the years, my collection grew. And then when the internet came on in the mid-90s, I saw it as a business opportunity, and that's when I got started in selling books. And this was in Vancouver, but by 2000 I was out in Abbotsford, and I bought the Hemingways store, which was an existing bookstore, largely books, other things, and that was 14 years ago.
So an antiquarian sounds like a zodiac sign, doesn't it?
These were guys who one of my mentors had been the rare books librarian at the University of Victoria, Howard Gerwing, and his specialty was antiquarian stuff. It has to be well over 100 years old. Books have been around for a long time, and when people come into my store and say, I've got this really old book and it's from 1962, I kind of go, no, you don't. Even Bibles. In Britain, for instance, Bibles are very common that were published from 1830 to 1900. They were cranking them out by the tens of thousands. It was the most widely produced book, period. So to find a book, a Bible done in 1880 is really not that extraordinary.
Really?
In Britain, dealers really get interested in Bibles if they're 1760 or younger.
Ooh.
So you go back further, go 1700, 1650, that's antiquarian. a Bible done in the 19th century isn't really going to get anybody's interest, generally speaking. So people have to understand that books aren't like furniture. You don't find a 300-year-old chair, but you can find a 300-year-old book fairly easily.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
And you have a couple of books in your bookstore that are very, very old, don't you?
We have it. We've had some going back to, I think the oldest book I've ever had in the store for sale was 1512. Wow. And it was a book on basically battlements. It was done a bit like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci were doing in those days, doing these ink drawings of battlements and how they could figure out angles for cannons. It was the early days of gunpowder. And I've had a couple of other titles in the 16th century, so they were around during Queen Elizabeth when Shakespeare was alive. I've had books, quite a few from in the 1600s. As a matter of fact, I had a couple I sold just not too long ago, but the bindings were original, and they actually were stronger than bindings that were 200 years younger.
Really?
Because of the handmade. This is why I really enjoyed working with 1500 to 1800 age books, because they're all handmade. We didn't get the technology to start manufacturing books until about 1830. And then it accelerated very quickly. So by 1880, you're cranking out books sort of the way we do it now, with a lot of machines and a lot of technology, a lot of chemicals. And it's not how they did it for the first 300 years. So those early books are really exciting because you realize everything's been done by hand.
That is and let's face it, those rare books you can keep and pass on to generations.
Right, and they will tend to outlast today's books. I mean, the number one product they used for making paper in those days was made from hemp. Hemp paper was what was used. Hemp paper was used in the American Declaration of Independence. It was used to make the Gutenberg Bible.
No kidding.
Right. So they weren't using wood. Wood was a very cheap and very inferior product that came along later. But no, hemp was what they even made linen from. Irish linen for centuries was a hemp product.
And hemp is far more superior.
Oh,
to wood.
it lasts far longer. It doesn't yellow. It doesn't break down. The ink stays crisp and black on it. I mean, you can't compare it. I can show you a 400-year-old ink, which is much brighter than a 50-year-old ink from some old pocketbook that was cranked out in the 1950s.
Have to bring that into the
Yeah, one day we will, yes.